raised in Cessnock, Mark Fitzgibbon is the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Hunter-based private health insurer NIB. Mark was named Business Person of the Year in 2012 by the Hunter Business Chamber, and in 2014 he was appointed to the newly formed board of the Newcastle Knights. Mark believes good leaders need to be able to articulate their plans, and they strive to challenge the status quo, always innovating to remain ahead of the game. Welcome, Mark. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's good to be here.
Could you tell us a little about your career path?
Well, it's been a bit of a long path so far. I actually grew up in Cessnock and started working for the biggest corporation in Cessnock, which happened to be Cessnock Council. Back then I had a career in local government for about 17 years. I was running a couple of large councils throughout the state at an early age. Woke up one morning, decided it was time for a change, and made a career transition into the licensed club industry, both at a state level, or principally at the state level, and nationally. And 13 years ago now, I was approached to run NIB. NIB was very much it's a much smaller and focused Hunter Valley company, and today we can proudly boast to be an international company. So that's my brief history.
So what do you believe has shaped your leadership style?
A whole heap of forces. I don't think there's any one factor. We all have role models in our life. We all learn from education, just our life experiences. I remember somebody said to me a long time ago, what makes a good songwriter? And I reflected on tone and creativity and all those factors that automatically jumped to mind. But he said, no, a good songwriter is somebody who writes good songs, which I thought was flippant. But the more I explain, good songwriters have a certain methodology. They have two verses, a chorus, a bridge. So there is, leadership is very much intrinsic to people, but it's also an art that can be learned. So certainly I've learned over the years certain preconditions of good leadership. Well, not preconditions, conditions of good leadership are having a very clear vision and sense of purpose about what you're on about. Articulating that, good leaders are always very good at articulating, what they're on about and why. Showing people in your company or your organisation how they fit into, the plan. Psychological process of closure means people like to see where they fit in and how they're adding value, how they're making a contribution. Good leaders give a lot of feedback. They say thank you a lot, but they also hold people accountable, having set clear goals. So there are a whole range of factors which characterise good leadership. So I think anyone can become a good leader with experience and with some definition as to what good leadership actually means.
Mark, how do you encourage creative thinking and leadership within your organisation?
We have a certain philosophy, a culture, if you like, at NIB, which sounds a little bit serious, but it's more a concept born out of biology and evolutionary science, and it suggests that the idea that business strategy is somehow predicting the future and betting the farm on some specific future is nonsense. That nobody can predict the future, and the best we can do is actually predict certain future scenarios or certain future states and ensure that within our business we're focused upon being able to adapt to whatever the world serves up. There's a wonderful story about Bill Gates. Bill Gates didn't bet the farm. Bill Gates didn't wake up one morning and say, look, the world's going to be Windows and I'm going to bet the farm on Windows. Bill Gates had 6 separate projects going, and as the world started to like and move towards Windows, he amplified that and started to reduce his effort and investment in the others. So we think in a similar way in the company that we'll always have an open mind as to what the future can look like, and we're having multiple experiments going on across the business. We have a business where we insure overseas students and workers today. We insure 100,000 students and workers. That didn't exist 5 years ago, and it was premised on the fact that we saw that Australia were importing more students and had a growing appetite for workers, and we made a little bet, and today it's makes about $20 million that business. And I suppose culturally the other thing that we preach in the business and encourage is a sense of discontentment. That we're never happy with the status quo, that we understand that the status quo is eventually death, that unless you're continually innovating, creating and remaining agile, the world and the commercial world can be particularly brutal, will select you out.
How do you define the difference between a manager and a leader?
Well, I don't know if it's a dichotomy I generally accept. I think any manager has to be a leader, and any leader is by definition in managing people and resources. So it's it's a bit of a false distinction, and I'd only echo my earlier observations about what it takes to be a good leader. I suppose the manager side of thing focuses a lot upon that, actually, of setting goals and holding people accountable within that context that I spoke about earlier. But I don't see any big distinction. I think they're one and the same.
And to finish today, what local business person do you find inspiring?
Gee, that's a tough question. Look, there are so many. Newcastle and the Hunter are blessed with so many leaders. He's gone now. Carl Rogers, my predecessor. Carl took NIB from virtually nothing to what it was when I arrived in the business 13 years ago. You've got people like my good friend Phil Gardner, who has developed the West Groups into what it is today, and before him Bob Ferris, who was an important part of that story. You've got guys like Jeff McCloy, who I admire. People like Jeff, Hilton Grishon, Keith Stronach have all shown what I spoke about earlier. Had a clear vision and sense of purpose about what they were doing, and were prepared to invest and prepared to take risk and prepared to experiment. And then very good at amplifying those business plans, those initiatives that they'd taken to turn their businesses into what they are today.
Thank you so much for your time today, Mark.
My pleasure.